It is now almost 11:30 here, Thursday, December 14th, and I am excited to give you this information. You're going to get to hear firsthand from Cliven Bundy, and, you know, to understand what we have seen from him in the 2 years leading up to the Oregon standoff, this Bundy trial, everything. And it's going to help you understand why Cliven Bundy had a security team around him well after the roundup of the cattle was over, after the protest was over and everyone went home. Cliven Bundy continued to have a security team around him at all times. And the reason for this is because he knew he was on a hit list. Okay? And I am so excited to be able to bring you this information in this article that is packed full of information from the government witnesses that have been called, but the testimony did not turn out the way the prosecution was hoping. So, and the detailed information about Steve Myrie's involvement and Dan Love turning to whistleblower status in order to save his own butt, along with another BLM agent who are now covering their own butt because they are being portrayed as the bad guys. All right, guys.
Thousands of stars you see when you look up at the night sky, every one of them living in between two collapses. An initial collapse of a dark stellar gas cloud that formed the star, and a final collapse of a luminous star on the way to its ultimate fate.
The prosecutorial involvement. We know, according to testimony of Dan Love on October 25th, that Love had a conference call with then U.S. Attorney Dan Bogdan in Las Vegas. Together, they planned how they would bring Cliven to justice. If they could get Cliven to be the one to release the cattle or pull the pin, which meant to remove the pin on the gate holding the cattle, as it was referred to, then they felt they could charge him with impeding a federal officer in his duties, and then tie Cliven and his boys into a conspiracy in relationship to all other charges of weapons and assault of the Bundy 19. What they didn't anticipate is Cliven Bundy would never leave the stage area that day. Now, we also know that the now acting U.S. Attorney Steve Myrie and his assistant prosecutor Nadia Ahmed, the actual prosecutors in the Bundy trial, were photographed at the command center compound during the roundup operations, meeting with the operations leader. So it seems the prosecutors have become participants, or at least witnesses. They seem to have forgotten to mention that to the defense. Prosecutorial involvement 2. It is also now known that acting U.S. Attorney Steve Myrie was working with the Department of Interior OIG office on a weekly basis to aid the OIG inspector's investigation into handling of shredding of evidence, Dan Love's lost laptop, and his lost notebook. It was found that Mr. Myrie discouraged the investigators from interviewing anyone actually physically related to the act of shredding. On the stand, none, not one, of the responsible officers remember who did the actual shredding. They testified that they knew they hadn't and that they didn't remember seeing anyone else do it, but they knew they were ordered to do it. And of course, the OIG investigator never interviewed any of them prior to their testimony. But somehow, all of that huge volume of evidence was shredded, as the photographs of the shredded bags laid bare. So it seems again This prosecutor had become a participant, or perhaps the architect, or at least a witness. So that's the involvement of Steve Myrie. He was involved in the investigations that were going on. He made sure that anybody that was witness or that was made to do the shredding of documents was never interviewed. That's amazing, guys. So he's interfering with, the process of justice. Okay, the Bundy threat. The defense has been asking for copies of any evaluations from the government regarding the threat, if any, the Bundys might pose. It wasn't until November 2017 that the prosecution coughed them up. Why? Because, again, Dan Love mentioned them under oath. It turns out that there was not one, but in fact 5 threat assessments starting in 2011 that all showed the Bundys were a low threat risk. The government also paid a consultant of sorts $60,000 to evaluate the Bundys. No one knows why they were hired or where that report is either. The only reason the defense knows about its existence is because they found the receipt in discovery. Oops. Technical surveillance. Ryan Bundy remembered seeing a camera set up and monitoring the Bundy household during the weeks leading up to April 12th. The prosecution flatly denied the existence of such a camera or its deployment or its coverage. They also claimed the FBI was not involved in the roundup operation, nor were they on site. It turns out, yet again, from Dan Love and another BLM officer, that the camera was there, maybe more than one of them, set up and maintained by the FBI. Moreover, the FBI had their own trailer within the compound, and the live video feed from the cameras with parabolic-type listening devices came into the compound. The defense teams have asked for the footage from those cameras and recordings from the listening devices, but the prosecution claims that no recordings were made and no one was watching them. Even Judge Navarro has had a hard time with this one. Before, it was impeachable by yet another government witness, the chief of the communications center herself, who testified that the FBI liaison ran the live feed and that the command element watched it regularly, and especially as the ranks of the protesters began to swell. Wiretapping. Also revealed through testimony of Region 4 BLM law enforcement officer Robert Scalican, who had come in from Colorado to help Region 3 BLM law enforcement officer deliver to the Bundy family the BLM intent to enforce the refreshed court orders for removal of the Bundy cattle and from public lands, which lie under the Bundys' grazing and water rights, and solicit from them what resistance to this BLM action the Bundys might mount. In his testimony, he admitted that they had interviewed an employee of the Bundys and secretly recorded the conversation. When asked by the defense if he was aware that was a crime, he blew it off saying it wasn't. Wiretapping 2. Officer Scalakin was similarly cavalier with his actions and perhaps with federal and state law when he testified on cross-examination that he had recorded his Region 3 partner's telephone conversations with Ryan Bundy without revealing this fact at the beginning of the call to the parties. This, thusly poisoned, recording was even played in court, first as snippets and then at its full 46 minutes, by both the government and the defense, respectively. He added that such recordings were not part of the plan, but such recordings are done so routinely that it was never given a thought. In the session, without the jury's presence between these two wiretapping admissions, the judge allowed their use, but in passing made mention of possible criminal charges and that they would be dealt with later, not wanting this trial to get bogged down on separate issues. Wiretap Issue 3. It's now clear, through revealed documents, the government had been listening in on attorney-client phone calls between the defendants and their counsel. The prosecutors want the public to believe that their content is so mundane that it has no bearing on the trial, but that the recordings themselves have been reviewed by a special FBI team, which they call the Taint Team, guys, and marked them as privilege. So the recordings remain in the hands of prosecution, but they are so mundane, why hide them? Special Forces. New revelations also included information that not only was the Clark County Sheriff's Department Special Weapons and Tactics, which is called the SWAT team, was deployed to the Wash on April 14, but the FBI's hostage rescue team, the National Park Service Special Event Tactical Team, and the Los Angeles SWAT team were all present on site and had been ready to deploy the entire week, though apparently they all departed when given the stand-down order on April 10th. All along, Cliven Bundy has said that there were 200 armed, military-type government men and women surrounding his ranch. The prosecution said in their opening argument that there were only about 20. Now we know the official number is 197. The prosecutor's excuse for not disclosing all of these other Special Forces team was that they were there for training and practice, and because they were never used. Hence, there was no need to disclose them to the defense. Deployment. Cliven Bundy has also said all along that he was surrounded for over a week. He said there were checkpoints and spying was done on him and his family. The prosecution denied such crazy notions. But again, Judge Navarro's concern is that the organizational chart that was created to explain the communication and reporting authority between the BLM, FBI, NPS, Nevada Highway Patrol, Las Vegas Metro, LA SWAT, and all the other agencies deployed, there is, of course, missing. Missing, along with all the maps showing the agents' deployment locations, the paperwork, and handwritten material. Perhaps all put through the shredder. Was this done in an effort to cover up the magnitude of what was involved? Reports. Another concern Judge Navarro has is the revelation that some of the government criminal reports called 302s were written in November of 2017, not in 2014, as one would expect. And they were written only after being requested by the defense upon testimony of Dan Love and the other BLM and OIG officers in October 2017. So now they're fabricating evidence, is what this is saying. It seems that the reports may have been written to corroborate the narrative the prosecution had put forth to dispute Love's testimony. Wow. That's explosive, guys. The prosecution fabricating evidence. Hit list. The most worrisome of all the concerns that Judge Navarro has on her decision plate is the revelation that there was an actual hit list maintained by the government with Cliven Bundy's name at the top. The list seems to be an actual shooting list that has only been revealed by a BLM agent who is now trying to cover his backside. This agent has become a whistleblower. When I asked Cliven Bundy about who it was, he would not answer me directly, only to say that this BLM agent is no longer employed by the government. I wonder who that may be. As Cliven and I reviewed, well, we got a couple of BM guys who have turned into whistleblowers. You see? And all kinds of things are coming out. You guys see that? Do you see? So, it appears that the BLM officers themselves are coming forward to cover their own backsides. And they are providing this evidence to the defense because the prosecutor is directly involved in conjuring up evidence, fabricating evidence, hiding evidence, lying. Okay, and in order to cover his butt, it is believed that one of these whistleblowers is Daniel P. Love himself. As Cliven and I review, we've got a couple of BLM guys who've turned into whistleblowers. You see, all kinds of things are coming out. Okay, I need to ask, what this I am hearing about a kill list. It's all over social media. Yeah, well, there has always been a kill list. Remember the militia guys in front of the stage with me? They were there to protect my life. I was on the kill list for quite a long time. For 2 years. I've had bodyguards. I've been on it for a few years. Cliven Bundy is telling him, this is why I've had bodyguards around me for 2 years. He knew he was on a hit list. He knew it, and the bodyguards continued to guard him even after the protest was over. People went home. Gentlemen stayed behind to protect him. He says, in my own mind, I don't need a bodyguard. But they were always been bodyguards around me for 2 years. I've had them. Then now you read about what came out last Monday and you find out, well, I was right. They had a kill list, and I was number 1 on that list. He uncomfortably chuckles. This is more serious than most people want to think. So I asked, what stunned? Did they have a list that was like priorities of who to shoot first? No, it's just a book where a guy is keeping a kill list. When they mark off guys they already got rid of, I guess they had a big poster up there with my picture on it, the BLM office with a big X through it. I wonder if Dan Love's lost computer and lost notebook will be found soon. Okay, guys, so this is coming from Cliven Bundy himself. He knew he was on a hit list. That's why he had 2 years of security around him. The article continues. Of course, all of this stuff being hidden from them puts the defense in an extreme disadvantage. Not only has the prosecution not revealed these Brady documents, but there are dozens of personnel that have not been subpoenaed, reports reviewed, or even the existence thereof known. And this last Monday, Assistant U.S. Attorney Daniel R. Sheese complained at length about how much work all of this last-minute response to the defense request had been to their office. But it has been request for discovery material that has never provided them before, and whose existence was only just admitted to in court by the government witness's testimony. Just last night, the defense filed a 28-page motion for a mistrial, 1 of 6, I count. We need time to answer. The entire day, prosecutors, Myrie and Ahmed, sat uncharacteristically quiet, not wanting to dig themselves in deeper. I wonder why. I mentioned at the beginning that on my way home that afternoon I was sad. It's an in-my-gut kind of sad. I wonder why I wasn't angry or surprised. I was just sad. In the few days I've had to think about this situation, I realized that my government, in the country that I love so much, was actually acting illegitimately, criminally, with its people. I had heard about it. denied that it could possibly happen, and had even seen it before in my own trials with the government, but never so defiantly. I told my friends that night, I am sad because we depend and respect the judicial system we rely on, its fairness, for it to be just. And I want this fairness to every accused, even the most heinous of crimes, let alone for Cliven Bundy, a simple rancher standing up for our rights. Whew. Okay, this article, written by Michael Stickler, guys. It is on getpublished.pro blog. And the title of it is right here, Dan Love, now a whistleblower. So, the article even has comments in it directly coming from Cliven Bundy. Many of the Bundy men, including Cliven Bundy, had always suspected there was some type of hit list, and that is why Cliven Bundy had security around him for 2 years. Okay, information open to the public. Of course we do, guys. Of course we do. And we should demand it from our courts and from judges that are supposed to be sitting based on good behavior. You can't occupy a seat of a judge, okay, and act the way that this judge has acted. We need the court to be opened up. There is no more covering up the bad behavior of Steve Myrie in this whole creation of this case, okay? The Bundys, they attempted to entrap the Bundys, but God has protected them, and he's still protecting them. And it's time to shut this case down and open up the court documents and the court hearings. Reveal those records to the public.